Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys checking out today's video and spending some time with me. Guys, today we've got a really good video, good information-packed video. We're going to be talking about cold water crankbait fishing. At the time of filming this video, it's almost the 1st of December, and between like December and early March, this is the time frame I'm talking about for cold water cranking, and I consider cold water cranking anytime that water temperature is between like 45 and 55 degrees. It's like sort of hard to get bit on a crankbait if the water temperature is under 45 degrees, and if the water temperature is over 55 degrees, like in the springtime of year, a lot of times there's some other lures that work better. But man, if you fall into that window of 45 to 55, it doesn't really matter what time of the year it is. It could be late fall, early spring. This cold water crankbait technique I'm going to talk about is going to really catch you a lot of fish. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about some of my favorite cold water crankbaits and then the applications and the scenarios that they work in. And it should pretty much cover about every lake in the country. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, for get started, thank you very much for everybody that's taken time to subscribe here at Intuitive Angling. Appreciate all the subscribers that have hit that subscribe button. Also, guys, if you'd like to become a channel member of Intuitive Angling, just go to my homepage, click the join button. Channel members get free videos that are not seen by the public every week. And you can email me personally with your fishing questions. So you can do that by being a channel member. And also one final quick thing, guys, Silverbat has got this Black Friday sale going on my Signature Series glasses. 50% off right now for the next, I think 3 weeks it is. On my RB2s, RB3s. Also, if you use the promo code Randy B, capital R, capital B, free shipping and handling, half price, guys. Just get you a pair of those high contrast yellow, man. That's my favorite lens color. Okay, appreciate putting up with the plugs there. Let's dig into this now. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the realities of cold water crank, and then I'm going to get into the baits, specifically how I like to fish them. One of the things about bass fishing in cold water is a lot of people they think that bass get just sort of dormant in cold water, and they don't, because bass are actively feeding all year long. Excuse me. I don't care if the water temperature's 37 degrees or 100 degrees. I've caught tons of bass, here in Missouri when the water temperature is 37 and 38 degrees on jerk baits. And they will chase a crankbait. Even if that water temperature is 45 degrees or whatever, they will chase and bite a crankbait, but you've got to have the right conditions. And those conditions are dependent upon the water clarity in relationship to your water temperature. Those two things mixed together, we talk about that a lot. And there's also some specific type of areas that the fish get into for cold water cranking that you have to concentrate in. So that is sort of a misnomer that these bass get really inactive and you've got to fish these crankbaits super, super slow. I have caught a lot of bass on a crankbait in cold water just on a medium speed retrieve, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So, okay, now what I want to do specifically, I want to go through, I've got 6 of my favorite cold water crankbaits lined out here, and I'm going to go through each one of them and sort of give you the scenario that I like to fish them in more than anything else. Okay, the first one we'll talk about this is one that doesn't get fished very much. This is a Lure Jensen Speed Trap crankbait. And also, guys, I'll link every one of these crankbaits in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to pick some of them up. If you can use that link in my description, you can get the baits. Right now, it's a good Black Friday sale, and also it's a good way to help the channel by using the bookmark in that link. So I'll put that in there. But anyway, this is the Lure Jensen Speed Trap. It comes in a 1/4 ounce and a 3/8 ounce size. This is a larger one. This is the one I primarily use in cold water, but this is sort of like a forgotten crankbait. There was a handful of us back in the late 90s, early 2000s, myself and my buddy Brent Chapman. I include Aaron Martins on this also. Aaron, this was a big favorite of his. Speed Trap is an excellent bait in cold water. Anytime that water temperature is between, say, the upper 40s to mid 50s, I've caught a ton of good fish on a Speed Trap, and I've done really good in tournaments on the Speed Trap all over the country. I've caught them, I've made top 10s in Bassmaster tournaments at Lake Wheeler in Alabama on this. Lake Murray, I caught a 25-pound bag on a Speed Trap at Lake Murray in March. All through the Ozarks here, I've caught them in Florida on it. Anytime you got cold water, Speed Trap is really good. Now, the primary thing that you want to fish a Speed Trap around is It's a shallower running crankbait, so I like a little bit flatter type areas in the wintertime. Now this is a little bit different because most of these other places are for steeper areas. But guys, the number one thing, this is a little trick, a little secret I'm gonna share with you guys. If you can find a boat ramp in the wintertime, residential boat ramp or whatever, where the water temperature is just right around 50 degrees, take a speed trap and throw that freaking thing over a boat ramp in the wintertime. Those fish will set on the end of those boat ramps in the wintertime. I don't know what it is about it. A speed trap will catch them off of a boat ramp. The other places that a speed trap works really good at is if you've got the more of a flatter gravelly type bank that's closer to deep water. So say for example, you're coming up on like a main lake point and it's a flatter gravelly type point. A lot of times, if your boat is in 15 or 20 foot of water and there's a flatter gravelly small rock type area, speed trap can be deadly on a little bit flatter areas close to deep water, a little bit smaller rock. And then finally, guys, if you've got any type of submergent vegetation in the lake, say you're fishing the TVA lakes like Gunnersville or whatever, water temperatures around 50 degrees, a speed trap is deadly over submergent vegetation that's in like 4 to 6 foot of water. I've caught them on this in grass on Sam Rayburn Lake in Texas and Toledo Bend, all the TVA lakes, I've caught them on it. Really good bait in the wintertime for that. Okay, the next one I want to talk about, and this is probably the most famous one. This is just the old school wiggle wart. Wiggle wart is a deadly cold water crankbait. Anytime the water temperature is around 50 degrees. A wiggle wart will not work that good if the water is below 50 degrees, but I consider the wiggle wart a crankbait for like 50 to 55 degrees. And it doesn't really make sense because the speed trap, it doesn't even run as deep as a wiggle wart. And this sun will catch them in water temperature under 50, but the wiggle wart, I don't catch hardly anything on it if the water's under 50. It's just one of those mysteries of bass fishing that has to do with the wobble and water displacement, everything around it. But guys, if you got water temperatures, 50 to 55 degrees, maybe even 57 degrees, wiggle wart is going to be deadly for you. So it's going to be working between November and March. A wiggle wart works in a wide range of water clarities. That's the great thing about it. I've caught good fish on a wiggle wart when the water visibility was 2 foot, and I've caught them on a wiggle wart when the water clarity was 10 foot. Excellent lure for any type of cold water, late fall, springtime fishing. And guys, I have caught fish on a wiggle wart. A lot of people think a wiggle wart is like a crawdad pattern like this. I have caught them on every single color that you can imagine. They bite. I really don't think the color is important as the wobble. The wobble on a wiggle wart is what causes these fish to bite it. And it's hard to find the good ones because, you hear a lot of you guys that know a lot about bass fishing, you've heard people talking about the old wiggle wart. The difference between the new wiggle wart and the old wiggle wart is the old one, this is an old one here, it'll wobble about that far side to side. And the new ones are more about like this. So that's the difference. So if you can find the older wiggle warts that were made like prior to the year 2000, they're like gold. So really try to find them. You can catch them on the new ones, but the old ones are a lot better. Well, and some guys like a rock crawler too. You hear a lot of guys that think they like a rock crawler better than a wiggle wart, but I've never seen in my personal fishing a rock crawler outproduce the old school wiggle wart. They're just deadly, and they have been forever. Okay, the next one, guys, this is a Megabass flap slap. A lot of you guys that have been with the channel, you've heard me talking about this. Deadly crankbait during cold water. I catch them on the flap slap anytime the water temperature is between 45 and 55 degrees. Sometimes even cooler, because I consider the flap slap, it looks just like a threadfin shad here. It's more like a hybrid cross between a crankbait and a jerkbait. You fish it sort of like both of them. I crank the flap slap, and I'll twitch it a little bit, then I'll crank it a little bit. So I'll work it down like a crankbait like that, then I'll twitch it around and work it like a crankbait like that. And doing so, you can fish it really slow because you can put like a suspend strip on the belly here and make it suspend, and you can crank it down like that and then just leave it almost like a jerk bait and twitch it a little bit and then crank it like a crankbait. That's why this thing is one of the most deadly cold water crankbaits that there is. If you said, Randy, you can have one crankbait for cold water, it would be a flap slap. I've caught so many big fish on it. The biggest fish I've ever, or excuse me, the biggest limit of bass I've ever caught in my life in a tournament, a Bassmaster tournament, was on a flap slap at Lake Gunnersville in early March. These two right here, guys, these two baits right here have accounted for 3 of my top 5 heaviest bags of fish in my entire career in tournaments: a speed trap and a flap slap in cold water. Deadly, deadly. Usually with flap slap, I'm fishing it on, you know, like 8 to 10 pound test line. And all these baits here we're talking about, guys, sorry guys, got some congestion for some allergies here. But all the baits we're talking about, I fish every one of them on 8 to 10 pound test Seaguard Vizx fluorocarbon line. You don't ever want to go over 10 pound test in your wintertime cranking for the depth attainment and the sensitivity both. Okay, the next one, guys, is the old school Shad Rap. Can't beat it, guys. These two baits right here, the old school Shad Rap and the old school Wiggle Wart, these baits are anomalies in the fact that they have been catching fish for 50 years, both of them, and they still are as good today. The Shad Rap and the Wiggle Wart are both as good in 2025 as they were in 1985. Shad Rap is a famous cold water crankbait, and the way I like to fish it, guys, is rocky banks. Just to get on a steep rocky bank, I always weight it, again, with suspend strips in the winter time of the year, so I can fish it like the flap slap, where I can reel it down like that and stop it where it doesn't float up. It just sits there, and I may twitch it a little bit, then reel it a little bit more. And that's why these two baits right here are so effective in the winter time of the year. Is you can fish them so slow, almost like a cross between a jerk bait and a crankbait. I'll get into a little bit more as far as the exact type of areas to fish them in, but I first just want to go through the baits a little bit. And then finally, the last one, guys, is a flat side. This is the Megabass Sonic Side, flat side crankbait. Perfectly flat here. A flat side is just almost like the flap slap. You know, both of these are flat-sided crankbaits. A flat-sided crankbait, like the Sonic Side, is also deadly in cold water. Again, I always put the suspend strip on it. A Sonic Side, this bait work right here will work good in the coldest water. So you're talking about some crankbaits work better below 50 degrees and some work better over 50. A Sonic Side or any type of a true flat-sided crankbait works better in water temperatures under 50 degrees. Okay, now let's talk about the conditions, specifically the water visibility conditions and the areas for each one of these baits. The water visibility for the Sonic Side, you need to have more off-colored water because this bait doesn't get down very deep. So the Sonic Side and the flap slap both, since these are shallower running type crankbaits, I want water visibility, say 2 to 3 foot. Now, if you start getting into water visibility over 3 feet with both of these two baits, they're not as effective. And it's sort of the same. I'll put the speed trap in that same category. So the speed trap, the Shad Rap, and the Sonic Side, the water clarity window is critical of 2 to 3 foot, you know, about anywhere between like that to about that visibility. The reason it's so critical is that's going to put the fish in the water depth that are catchable for this crankbait. If you get too clear of water, those fish are going to be deeper when the water's cold, and you're not going to be able to reach them with this. And if you get water visibility of, say, less than 2 foot or less than 1.5 foot, maybe, it's going to be hard to get a bite. So sort of that, if you gave me a perfect water clarity window for this, I'm going to pick, 15 to 20 inches visibility in the water. The next thing with that, aside from the speed trap here, where it works better in flatter banks, is I always like, and the same with every one of these, I like steeper rocky bank, and rock is key unless you have grass, and that's a different story too. But what I'm looking for on all these baits, I don't care if it's the Shad Rap or the Wiggle Wart or whatever it is, I want, with the exception of the speed trap here, I want a steeper type rocky bank. It doesn't have to be super, super steep, but it needs to be like at a 45-degree angle. I want some type of proximity to deeper water. This is key. So the areas that you want to pick for cold water cranking are places where the old river channel or the old creek channel swing fairly close to the bank. Now, why I prefer a steeper rocky bank, you don't have to have it as long as you've got that deep water next to it. A steeper rocky bank with a 45 to 60 degree angle is usually always better. And it's all about paralleling, making a long cast and paralleling down these steeper rocky banks. So you're talking about, it can be anywhere between a bank that's got rock that size on it or bluff banks. You know, the rock variation depends on the lake, but the approach and the technique is the same. I'll line up on those steep banks and I'll get my boat in anywhere between 5 to 10 foot of water, and I'll make the longest cast that I can down that bank, and then I just start, you know, fishing those baits with a slow medium retrieve and really being thorough and taking my time, not slopping through. And obviously areas like little rock outcroppings or indentations or rock transitions are going to be, you know, high percentage areas, but it's mainly just getting on those banks and covering water at a pretty slow speed with that. You can't get in a big hurry with this. This is a technique that you have to finesse those baits when you're cranking them. So what I mean by finesse these baits when I'm cranking it is you've got to have this bait close to the bottom or hitting the bottom. If you're fishing like the flap slap, you don't necessarily have to be bumping the rocks on the bottom. But if you're fishing a wiggle wart, you've got to be bumping the rock on the bottom. But both of the baits, I want to be fairly close, you know, to the bottom when I'm doing that. Now, one of the things, I'm going to give you a little tip and advice on this as far as how to fish these. Every one of these crankbaits I fish on a spinning rod in cold water. And the reason I fish it on a spinning rod is the number one reason is I can make longer casts with it, especially if the wind's blowing. So if you and I are fishing, you know, even like a wiggle wart or something like that, I guarantee I can cast that wiggle wart 25% further than you can on a bait caster, because I'm going to be having it on 6 to 8 pound test line. 8 is probably my go-to. 8's probably my favorite with that. And then also when you're fishing a spinning rod, guys, it's like, here's one of the advantages about it. When you throw that spinning rod out there and you start cranking that bait, you know, like that, when that bait is down at its deepest part, you got better feel with it. You can like pull it a little bit, and you can crank it a little bit, and you can twitch it a little bit, and you can pull it, and you have a element of sensitivity with a spinning outfit that you do not have with a bait caster for cold water crankbait fishing. You know, so it's a combination of the length of the cast, it's a combination of being able to use lighter line, and it's also a combination of having a softer rod tip. That's the great thing about a spinning rod. I use this Megabass whip snake or the Addermine, is this tip here. See the tip bend on the rod? This is critical for cold water cranking, because number one is when those bass bite a crankbait in cold water, it's usually an extremely soft bite. It's usually just like, you don't even know if you've hit a leaf or something. It almost feels like you've run into a leaf and the crankbait stopped wobbling. By having that soft tip, that tip will bend a little bit when that fish inhales the bait, allows that bait to get a little bit further in its mouth, and then also the softer tip will allow you to fight the fish better. It's more forgiving if that fish makes a pull. So always fish a crankbait in the wintertime on a spinning outfit. Same with my jerk baits, guys. One of the things that you hear me if you watch the channel a lot, I fish all my jerk baits on a spinning outfit, and I fish all my cold water crankbaits on a spinning outfit. You're just gonna get more bites. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you don't agree with me on this, you haven't fished a spinning rod with these lures as much as I have, because I have experimented extensively. I mean, I've spent 45 plus years going back and forth between a bait caster and a spinning outfit with these lures. A spinning rod is the premium outfit that you want to throw with it, by far with that. So anyway, guys, that's just a good little tutorial to get you started on cold water cranking. Time of the filming this video for 1st of December. It's going to be working from now all the way up until March. These, like I said, these are my 6 favorite. I'll link them again all in my Tackle Warehouse link if you want to pick up a couple. And I hope it helps you guys catch some good ones. So talk later.